In this video, we are going to see about the components. You all may have the question like, why should I learn about the components? So, this interaction is created with the help of the components. It looks smooth and very effective. Even this button effect is also created using the component. So now you have understand the usage of the components. In this video, we are not going to see only about how to create the components. We will be seeing about the variants, variables, and the interactions between the components. So let's get into the video and learn about the components. So let's understand what is the components. The components are the reusable elements, so we can able to maintain the consistency across all the pages of the website. Even it can be used to maintain the interaction between the elements. Not only that, the component is packed up with the variants, variables, and interactions. Think of it as some building blocks, and you have almost complete everything, and you have used wherever you need. And if you do the changes in one of the blocks, then it will automatically affect the other blocks wherever you have used. So that's the concept of the components. Let me explain you with some example. Okay, and let me show you. Now I have created with the button. Now this button have to be used in all the pieces. So I'm going to duplicate this and duplicate this and duplicate this. So all this button will be used in somewhere else. Okay, now what I think is, I don't like this blue color. I just want to make it as some other colors. So what I will do, then I have to select all those and go to the fill, and I have to change the colors, and it will be very difficult. And even if I want to change the context of it, I need to do it one by one. It's a very time consuming process. So in this cases, we are using a component. So let me delete one by one. So now let's start up with creating a component. In order to create a component, just right click and use create component, so that a component will be created, and I have given the name as button. We will be shown as variant 1, and this variant 1 will be the primary, and also the component which you have created will be found in the assets panel. So this variant 1 will be the primary. Think of it as a master. So whatever the changes you're doing in the primary will be affected to all the instance. Okay, now let me name it as primary itself. Okay, now what I think is, I need to add the hover effect for this button. So whenever I hover over this button, some effect have to be done. So for that, I'm going to this hover. I'm just clicking on it, and let me add as hover. So the hover state has been created, but only the thing is, we need to change the color for this hover. So for that, I'm going to the fill or any other thing, and if you want, you can change the color. Let me make it as little lighter. Okay, we have created the hover effect for the button. Now we will be having another thing that is called pressed state. So if I click on this pressed, so whenever the mouse is pressed over this button, this effect will be applied. So let me do the changes. Let me give it as like this, so in order to understand the variation. And in order to preview this, let me go to the preview. This is the hover, this is the pressed. Can you see the changes? So this is how we need to do. So this is how we need to create the hover effect and pressed effect for this particular primary button. Okay, so here it will automatically create the a naming convention of it as primary hover and primary press. So whatever the changes you're doing in the primary, that it will be affected to all other instances, that is for the hover and also the pressed. Okay, so let me show you. If I do the changes for the size as 20, it will automatically affect the other instances. Now we have created a component with the master, that is a primary, and also with the hover state and the press states. Now we are going to create another variant. Before creating a variant, you need to understand what is the use of the variants. It's because I have a primary button, but in some cases, we need another secondary button with some other color changes or some other font size changes. That is, if we need the basic essence of this primary, but we need only to change the some of the color or some of the padding value, something like that. In that cases, we can use a variance. The variance usages can be vary in different cases, but coming to the button, this will be the case. Okay, so by clicking on this primary, I'm going to the variant. I'm clicking on this variant. So the variant 2 will be created. Let me name it as secondary. Got it? Now, what I think is I need to reduce the sizing, that is the padding value of this secondary. So let me give it as 10, 10, 15, 15, and for this, let me give it as 16. So a smaller button has been created now. Even for this, we can create the hover state and also the press state. So let me add the hover state and let me give the color of it fixed, and let me create the press state. As I have already mentioned, if you do any of the changes here, it will automatically affect the other variants. So you can create a number of variants with this primary. Okay, now you have understand about the components and also the variants, right? Okay, now we have created this button component, and even I have used this button component in another section also. Now in cases we need to use a different button for some of the section. So how to change? We have already created the variant, but we don't know how to use the other variants. So for that, I'm just clicking on this button and I'm going to the button component. Here you can see the variants, and if I choose on it, you can identify the primary and secondary. Just choose up with the secondary, so it will automatically changes to the variant which we have created. Okay, now in some cases, let me change it to primary. We need to change the text of it. So what we will do, you may all have think I can just create the another variant with the different text. You can do that, but it's not a good practice. So for that, we can use the variables. So let me get into it. So on using the variable, you can make the component more flexible and more reusable. Even you can create a variant with a different text. But what about if you have hundreds of text? What if you need to use the button for 100 times and with different text? It will be tedious process if you create a variance with each with new name, and also it will be difficult to maintain. So for that, we can use the variables. The variable is like a container. You're giving the name for the variable, and all the values which you're storing will be saved inside that variable. Let me explain you here. So I'm just selecting on this primary. Here what I need to do, I need to do the changes to the text. So I'm just selecting on the text and going to the text. Here you can find the content, because we need to change the content of it. Even if you want to change the color of the text, you can go here. Or if you want to change the size of the text, you can go here. So for instance, I'm going to the content. So let me click on the content. I'm going to create a variable. So here it's asking whether it is a plain text or formatted text. I need the plain text, so I'm going to the plain text. Here I need a button text. Got it? Here you can give the description, so it's for the understandability why we have given the variable for it. We can provide the description for that, and even we can provide it with the default value that should be here in the button. And even if you want, you can give the placeholder, and even if you want, you can make it as text area or no. Okay, then I have created the button text. So the button text will be the variable. So this button text will be act as a container. For example, I'm giving a variable as fruits. Okay, so that fruits will be act as a container. So inside the container I name it as fruits, so only the fruits can be put it inside the container, so that all the fruits will be hold inside this fruits container. The same thing will be acted here. I have given the name as a button text, that is as a container, so inside the containers I can put any number of text inside that button text container. Okay, so let me go back. Here, instead of learn more, I need to give it as get started. So how to do that? Again, if you go to the button component, you can find the variable which you have created. Here you can do the changes. So automatically the text will be changed here. So we have understand about the components, variants and variables. Now let's see about the interaction between the components. Okay, here the example is I have created this effect. So if I click on this toggle should move here. If I click on here, this toggle should move here. So how to do that? It can be done with the components along with the interactions between the variants. That is, we are going to create the component and also we are going to create the another variant, and between these two variants we are going to create the interactions. So let's see how to do that. So let me create a variant. Okay, so make it as fit. So this will be the primary. Let me give it as primary as of instance, and now we have to create another variant which will be slightly changing its design. Okay, here it is applicable for the early, so instead of primary, let me name it as early itself. Okay, so this will be for the early, that is early, and let me create another variant. It will be act for the monthly. Okay, so let me give the color, and for this let me change the color. Okay, we need to move this circle, so let me take out this and let me give it as 4, so that it will be for the monthly. So we have created early and also monthly. That's it, we have created variants. So how to make it as functionable? There comes the interactions. So the interaction is creating some of the animations between the variants inside the components. Okay, which I have said now. So I'm clicking on this switcher, so whenever I click on this switcher, this circle should move, right? So instead of choosing this yearly, I'm just choosing this switcher. So now I'm going to the interactions. Now I'm going to select this lightning icon, clicking and dragging it, that is on click. So the same thing follows here, switcher. So whenever I click on it, it should move to the yearly. Let me check, it's working perfectly fine. And if I want to workable for the monthly and yearly also, I am going to click on this monthly, just click and drag. The same, just click and drag. So whatever it happens, it will be working. Even if I click on early, monthly, it will works. Okay, so we understand about the interactions. Now I feel it should be little bit faster or it should be little bit smoother. How to achieve that? For that, I'm going to this primary variant. Here you can find the transition. So if I click on this transition, you can find whether it should be instant, ease or spring. Let me choose up the instant. Let me check how it's happening. It is not at all smooth. That's where comes the other interactions, that is ease. If you want, you can use ease in out, linear, ease in, ease out, and even you can customize the interactions, or you can use up with the spring. Let me give it as 50 and 580, and let me check. So it's way smoother than the before. Yes. So this is how you need to create the interactions between the variants. So you have understand about the components, variants, variables, and the interactions between the variants of the component. Now we are going to create this type of interaction. Let's see how to do that. So here we have created a basic setup. Here we have a card title with the numbers and a text and a description, and also with an arrow. So at the bottom we have an image, so it will be act as an opening state. So that we have made the basic structure, and let me create a component of it. So it will be make it as FAQ. Okay, so it will be a variant one, so it's in an opening state. Okay, this variant will be the closed. So now we doesn't need this image, so let me make the visibility to no, and let me create another variant. This is for the open, and here let me give the visibility to S. Okay, and okay, for this let me change the direction to 0, and for this let me make the rotation to 190. Okay, so that we have created a closed state and an open state. So in order to create the interaction between this, so I'm just clicking on this card title, and let me make the interaction. Okay, the same follow-ups, this card title, let me make the interaction. So that let me check up with this. So it's working perfectly fine, and I have given the max width to this description. That's why it's showing up like this. Okay, so that we have created the closed state and also the open state. Now we are going to create the variables for that. So let's see how to do that. I'm clicking on this number. Okay, and going to the content, let me create the variable as plain text. So for that we are going to create the variables, because we are not going to use only this, we are going to create the multiple things. So for that we are going to create the variables. Okay, so let me choose up with this one. Let me go to the content, let me create the there is as a number. Okay, and this is will be the title. So let me go to here, plain text, it will be the title. Okay, and this is will be the context. Okay, and this is the image. So the next one is the image, so I'm going to here is the fill, and let me choose up with the image. Okay, and this will be the background color, so let me choose up with the background, a BG color. Okay, so that we have made the basic setup. Right now let me go back. So if you want to change it to closed state, let me make it as closed. Okay, done, and let me check, it's working perfectly fine. Right now let me create a 4 FAQs, and here we can able to change the text. Let me make it as this color, this one, again this one. Okay, and this will be 3, and this will be 4. The same follow-ups, you can change the image. Let me use the plugin. Okay, so that we have created something like this. It is not looking great, right? So let me add a tag. This will be FAQ wrap. Let me give the max width. Okay, 1000. Let me check up. It's working, but the thing is the change of color, right? So I have changed the color of it. Let me check, it's working properly. And now we have made the basic setup. Now what I think is by default this should be the default state. When I click on it, it should change to the open state, along with the color have to be changed. So how to do this? This can be achieved with the help of another component, just creating another component. Before that, let me add a line beneath this 2, 3 and 4. So how to make that. And again, I'm creating another component with an existing component. So let me create a component that will be act as FAQ wrap, and this will be, let me make it as desktop 1. So for the better understandability, I think we can take out this one, just use only the 3. So this will be the desktop 1. I'm going to create another variant. This will be the desktop 2. Okay, and here let me make it as closed, and let me decrease it. And coming to this, let me use some other color. Let me use this color. Let me increase the opacity. Okay, and let's check. It's working. Great. Okay, great. And now let's make it as open. Okay, and let me create another one. This will be act as desktop 3. Okay, here we need to change it as open. Okay, we have created this, but coming to this, let me make it as closed, and let me take out this color. Okay, we have created the 3 variants. One is desktop 1, desktop 2, and desktop 3. Now we need to create the interactions, right? So when I click on the second, it should go to the 2. Okay, and when I click on this third, it should go to here. Okay, and the same, it should go here. Okay, everything is perfectly fine. Okay, let me check. It's not opening and closing correctly. So what we can do, we can go to the spring, and let me change to something like this. Okay, now let me check. If I click, yeah, it's working perfectly fine. And also I want to ensure that why I have created the interaction instead of making it like that. Let me explain you that. So why I have created the interaction between these variants, even I can just leave it as like that, right? So let me explain you. Okay, if I click on it, the previous one is still in the open state. I have to go back and it have to collapse, and if again I have to click on the second for the collapsing. If I click on the third one, it's opening. The second one, it's opening. So whenever I click on the third one, it should automatically close the second and the first one. So that's why I have created the interaction between these things. So let me show you again. So if I click on this, it's automatically closing the first one. If I click on this, it's automatically closing the second one. So that's why we have created like this. Now you have understand how to make this interaction between these variants of this component. So you have get a clear idea on that. I hope you have really enjoyed this video and gained some of the knowledge about the components, variants, variables, and the interaction between the variants of the component. And also you have learned about the nested components also. So if you really enjoy this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel and share it with your fellow designer. If you want any of the session on the framework, you can book me. I have provided the link in the description below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.